let's get the thoughts of our TSN NHL insider. Welcome to the show, a presentation of the Myers Automotive Group. Frankie Corrado. How you doing this morning, Frankie?
I'm good, JR. What's happening?
Oh, well, we're just trying to calm the waters a little bit after the last two Sens games.
Oh, yeah?
5-0, 7-1.
Well, you know what? Cheer yourself up. Little Taylor Swift album today. Happy album day to you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you celebrate that, but that was celebrated in our house 0.25 seconds after my wife walked in the kitchen today, turned the speaker on, said we got to listen to this thing.
Okay, what's the initial impression on T Swift?
Dude, I'll tell you what. I'm like an original Swiftie. Like back when Love Story was on and you had to buy a CD. Like I had the CD in my Jeep Liberty up in Sudbury, like my '05 Jeep Liberty.
Yeah.
So I go way back. At first listen, it's okay. It's fine. It's not the old stuff. Never going to be the old stuff, but it's okay.
Okay. Sometimes you got to listen to, you got to listen to something like 5 or 10 times before it really you really get a good feel for it. Sometimes the first one, you're right. It's a little, it's not, because you're always comparing it to what you see at its peak, right? So hard to live up to that.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of which, Sens. Okay, so there's a little level of concern. I don't know if you heard the clip from Travis Green we just played that actually he wasn't that mad about last night. But and results don't matter. We recognize that as well. But 5-0 when we talked to you Wednesday, so that was already after the 5-0 game. But then 7-1 against St. Louis last night. Like, should there be even a small bit of concern from the team at this stage of how they've looked, particularly over the last couple of nights?
I think when, I heard the clips of Greeny talking after the game, and when you hear the word self-inflicted, generally, it's stuff that you could clean up, and stuff that you could clean up pretty quickly, and chances are everyone who's making those self-inflicted wounds knows better than to do those types of things. The only thing you get worried about is, do those mental mistakes bleed into the regular season, and does it cost you a game here and a game there? Because, in the Atlantic Division this year, it's going to be super tight, right? Like there's just that margin for error that even existed last year. Like I think there would have been more margin for error in the Atlantic Division last year than there's going to be this year for the Ottawa Senators, based on, Detroit should be a little bit better. Buffalo seems like, a lot of people are bullish on them. And those are two teams that largely weren't, just weren't in the same category as the Sens last year. So the self-inflicted stuff, that has to get cleaned up. And if it does, you don't have as much worry, other than you also need saves at the end of the day. And there wasn't a lot of saves happening for them last night. And, that's always going to be a part of that's going to be a part of the recipe for any team, but it's all, the Sens are no different. So if the self-inflicted stuff gets cleaned up and you get the saves you're supposed to get, then no reason for worry. You just don't want those things to bleed into the regular season.
This whole training camp here in Ottawa has felt a little bit disjointed just because of how the schedule even laid out. Like, they played a home game right away, and then they've essentially kind of been on the road. They went to Quebec City. I understand that's part marketing. I understand that whole part of it. But they come back, they immediately go out on the road, and they come back, they're immediately going back to Montreal. Like, it hasn't felt like here in Ottawa, it hasn't felt like there's been a whole lot of cohesion. And that even goes to the lineup that they have dressed. And I understand preseason as well is about seeing what you got in terms of junior guys, first of all, and then your bubble guys in the American Hockey League. Do you think that the Sens and Travis Green need to dress their A lineup tomorrow night in Montreal?
I would probably not a bad idea to dress your A lineup. Like, you should have at least one game where this is the crew that's going to start night one. Just get a game under their belt. And if you look at what Montreal is likely going to do or should be doing, it should be Montreal's A lineup in playing on Saturday. Like, Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky, they haven't played since last Thursday. So if they didn't play the game on Saturday because you were worried about shenanigans or whatever, that's going to make it 2 weeks between games for the top guys for Montreal. So my guess is the Habs dress something that either is very close to or is their night one roster. And I would think, I know, you had to fly to St. Louis and there's a time change. You fly back and you did the whole Quebec City thing. I like the fact that training camp preseason can culminate with one game with your guys that are going to be playing before you get into the regular season. And I'm trying to think back, like every training camp I was at, there was like the last two games of the preseason, whichever one was at home, whether it was the second last one or the last one, that was the one that all the big boys played in.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the AHL guys plus your like 13th forward and 7th and 8th defenseman and your backup goalie all played in the last road game. Now, the Sens have basically been on the road the entire time. So this is the closest thing you have to like that home game that usually everyone would play in. So yeah, like you're probably, I don't know. I like the idea of getting everyone together for one game and saying, here's our group and let's get one under our belt before we start things for real.
So Ottawa's A lineup probably, not 100%, but probably includes Nick Cousins. And we know how Tuesday went with Nick Cousins and what Montreal might be looking at. Ottawa's A lineup probably does not include Zach McEwen and Hayden Hodgson, who are their two so-called tough guys. So in terms of the A lineup, again, back to Montreal, and look, Arbor Jack-I most certainly will play. And again, given the Cousins factor, does Cousins play for you? And if Cousins plays, do you need to dress one or both of your tough guys, or how do you play that kind of sort of the more bottom end of the roster?
So you're saying that the guy that slashed the rookie in the hand can't defend himself after when Arbor Jack-I comes after him? You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Yeah, that's
what I'm saying.
That's basically like that would be the admission of things, right? Yeah, this is where I think this Saturday game, and I was talking to Gino Reda about it yesterday on SportsCenter. I think this is quite fascinating because if you are going to dress the guys that have something to prove still to try and make the team, a.k.a. McEwen or Hodgson, or on the Canadian side of things, Florian Jack-I, and their game is rough stuff and confrontations, then expect that to happen in the game. Like it's a lock that it's going to happen. But the other thing is, yeah, like you're right, JR. There's like a retribution factor where Arbor Jack-I might get a shift with Nick Cousins and say, like, I'm going to no choice you right now. Like you're fighting. But the thing is, like, you also have to keep in mind, like, you're going to address your A roster in your Ottawa, and Cousins is included, and Hodgson and McEwen aren't. This would not be the first time that Nick Cousins would have some kind of leftover spillage from one game into the other game and have to like find a way to finagle and slither his way through it. Like it's just not the first time this has happened to him. So there would be maybe a little bit of I don't want to call it concern, but a little bit of an awareness about it. But I'm pretty sure he could find a way to finagle his way through something like that. Yeah. I don't know. I think at the end of this, like this will be the last preseason game that both of these teams see each other, for a long time.
Yep.
Like remember when John Scott tomahawk slashed Phil Kessel in that preseason game and things got out of hand. Like I think that rivalry between Toronto and Buffalo was pretty spicy for a while. I don't know if Toronto, like in my time at training camp, we never saw Buffalo, and I was there after that happened. Like I wanna say that was it after. So I think for both of these teams, like I'm sure there would be people in either coaching staff or management that are like, we just don't need this anymore. Like we don't need 3 years of it spilling over, even though they're close in proximity. I don't know. It's gone on long enough in the preseason for these games that don't matter.
Yeah.
They don't mean anything.
I mean, you do a ton of Habs games. I tell you what, and this isn't just born from the game on Tuesday, but even dating back to last year. And look, Habs fans are feeling their oats right now. Like there's no doubt about that. And you've been in Montreal, and we're there's spillage here into the Ottawa market as well. Like they're feeling pretty good about their team. Ottawa fans, obviously based on the playoffs last year, feeling pretty good about This feels like this rivalry is just starting. And for Ottawa, maybe, I don't know about Montreal, but probably Montreal, this could be become one of the better rivalries in the NHL over the next, potentially, if things play out the right way in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think you're right on that, because there's so many things going for both these teams. A, they're both on the up and up. Like they're both going to be good here for the next little while. They're going to be battling and jockeying for playoff spots and potentially down the road, like division leading spots. They're close in proximity. Like both buildings, will be really rowdy and raucous. Whichever one they're playing in. There's also been like this bad blood that has now spilled over the last 2 years. You also have like these great characters involved with like, Brady Tkachuk, who is willing to fight anyone at any time and is really good at it and can beat people up. And if you're a Sens fan, you look at it and you're like, Arbor Jack guy's like the ultimate villain. Third pair defenseman, plays 15 minutes a night, but people call him the sheriff because, he's tough and he's big and he's willing to mix it up. And then you add in like his brother and it's like a double dose. There's a lot of things, not to mention like the star factor, like Timmy Stützle can be really aggravating to play against as well. He gets in the middle of a lot of stuff. There's the potential for this to be something that, for years here, as long as these guys are the centerpieces of it, which they all will be, they're all under contract, they're all going to be there. This should be one of the more spicy rivalries in the NHL, kind of similar to what we're seeing with Florida and Tampa. Did you see that last night?
Yeah.
Like there was a million fights, punches everywhere, guys getting kicked out, cheap shots, dirty plays. And this has been going back to like 4 years ago when they played in the playoffs. The year that Florida won the President's Trophy, they beat Washington in the first round, and they lost to Tampa. That was a bloodbath, and it seems like every time these guys play now, it's a bloodbath.
There's nothing more intoxicating as a hockey fan than seeing 6 guys in one penalty box. There's just something glorious about that. I don't know what it is, but that was crazy last night in Tampa. Yeah, to be sure. All right. Let one final one is just on the final preseason, just as generally from a player's point of view. Like for the veteran guys who know they're on their team, they're less than a week now from the start of the regular season. Like, how are you feeling about tomorrow night's game? The training camp is now at the end. You're almost, you've got your team almost made in terms of who your teammates are going to be. How are the Brady Tkachuks, the Stützles of the world? How are they feeling about going into that game now tomorrow?
Thinking finally we can get to the real stuff, because training camp, like it's a lot of hockey, right? Between the practices, but the scrimmages where you have to go pretty hard, and then the preseason games, and then the preseason games that you have to play with these mixed bag of players where, it's like 2 different games are being played in those preseason games where, half the lineup's AHL and junior guys, and you're watching it's a certain speed, a certain tempo, guys are kind of out of position. Then the big boys jump over the boards, and you're like, oh, okay, that's the pace, that's NHL pace, but then it drops again. Like, you play a few of those games, and then these guys, in Ottawa, they've had to do a lot of traveling for the preseason. So just, getting that final one in and getting back to like NHL regulars, NHL regular speed, NHL regular physicality, like everything just back to normal. I think it's a bit of a relief, to be honest with you, to get everything over with. And now you just kind of wrap your head around the fact that like it's for real. It's for real starting, next Thursday, and the games matter, and every mistake, kind of can be the difference between a win and a loss at this point. And the other thing, and this was always a thought coming out of preseason, if you're sharp and your team's focused and your team is detailed early on in the season, and even as an individual, there's an opportunity to get the jump on some guys that aren't quite there yet, whether it's a team or an individual or a goaltender. Like, we do see a lot of these higher scoring games in the early goings. Like, there are some, some more mistakes that happen. So if as a team you're ready and you're sharp, and then as an individual, you can take advantage of some mistakes on the other side, you can buy yourself put some currency in the bank that really helps and goes a long way. Like, I'm not saying you're going to start the year 15-1-0 the way Winnipeg did last year, but they played a lot of 500 hockey after that because they bought themselves a lot of goodwill.
Right.
That's not something that I think is attainable for a lot of teams, and maybe we won't see that again for a long time. But that's just, I guess, a more extreme example of what can happen when you're really dialed in early, how much goodwill you can buy yourself, how much currency you put in the bank.
All right. Speaking of currency in the bank, that literally, you like to put a shekel or two down on the odds. So today is FanDuel Futures Day. So they got all kinds of stuff on FanDuel. So I want to hit you with a couple of Sens ones and how you would lean. There's some individual ones, bets you can make, and some team related. So the easy team related, they've set the over under on Sens points for this coming season at 94.5. They were at 97 last year. 94.5. You taking over or under?
I would, even though preseason hasn't looked great, I'm still taking the over. Like I think they're a better team than 94.5. I'm actually surprised it's that low, considering how the success they had last year, and it's mainly the same group coming back.
Okay, Brady Tkachuk points 64.5. Last year he only had, which kind of it's kind of a little bit surprising. He had 55 points. In the season last year. Now, he missed 10 games, but 29 goals and 55 points. So over-under on Brady Tkachuk points, again, is set at 64.5. Over-under.
64.5 is over for me, because you also have to keep in mind the 72 games that he played, those were not a healthy 72 games. Like, those are basically with one hip or one groin at certain points. So, I think the other thing is Ottawa's going to score, or they should plan to score more at 5-on-5 this year. That should help his point total. So last year, if he does 55 points in an injured 72 games, not for all 72 games, but you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I think there's a very good chance that he's over 64 this year. He also, you got to go back to 1920 for the last time he wasn't, in a full season or close to it, near 64 points. I don't know. I think he's over.
Okay.
I think he's over.
All right. Tim Stützle to get to 90-plus points is plus 260. So last year he was at 79. He got to 90 a couple of years ago. Does he go 90-plus this year at plus 260? Is that a bet you would make or not?
I would take the under on Stützle 90 points, because as much as, yes, they need to score more this year, and a lot of that is going to go through Timmy Superstar, he also has a bit of an obligation to do a lot of what he did last year, where improved away from the puck, and is going to have to play against guys that are tough matchups on a nightly basis. And if Stützle gets 87, 88 points, that should not be seen as like a down year or a regression in any way, shape, or form. I think you can have it both. You could have Tim Stützle get, 9 more points this year and still maintain a lot of what he learned and did last year, and still have it be seen as a success.
All right, last one for FanDuel Futures Day. Drake Batherson, 80-plus points is plus 370. So last year he was at 68, which is a high water mark for him. We always assume with this stuff that he'll be healthy and ready to go for opening day. He's back skating, so we'll assume full health. So can Drake Batherson jump from 68 to 80, in your opinion?
I don't think so. No. I think it's too much of a jump for him to go in 1 year, because he's already scoring he's scoring in the mid-20s, high 20s. So if Batherson gets up to if he's a 30-goal scorer and a 40-assist guy, which is basically what he's been, throughout the course of his career, that doesn't get him to 80. So unless my math is really wrong there, but I think it's right.
Nope, you're right.
Yeah, that's kind of where I see Batherson out. There could be a little improvement for sure from the 68, and the Sens would welcome that, but I'm not willing to jump from 68 all the way to 80 when I have a sample size of him the last 3 years, basically playing, every game and being low 60s to high 60s in points.
Okay, a couple other things I want to get your thoughts on. A couple of big contract tracks that were signed yesterday. Jackson Lacombe, I got to be honest with you. I mean, I looked at this guy's stats. I don't know anything about Jackson Lacombe, but 14 goals and 43 points as a defenseman in your second year on a not very good team is pretty impressive. But that's worth $9 million a year for Anaheim over 8 years. So thoughts on that deal? And also Nico Mikkola, the gigantic Florida defenseman, who's going to turn 30 when his new 8-year contract kicks in at $5 million per season. So let's start with Jackson Lacombe. What can you tell us about him, and is he worth $9 million a year?
So he's the best defenseman in Anaheim for sure. And people would hear you say that and be like, "Oh, big deal, it's Anaheim." Like, Anaheim has been drafting top tier defensemen for a long, long time. If there's anything Anaheim knows, it's how to pick a D-man. And Jackson Lacombe is really good. I think there's a little bit of the, we just not a team that we see very often here, and you have to stay up and you have to watch Ducks versus, Utah Mammoth. Like, it's just, he kind of hides a little bit that way. I didn't peg Jackson Lacombe as a $9 million defenseman, but he certainly is very valuable to the team, and he's their best defenseman. As time goes on, I think it's the same old story, JR, where we're going to talk about this cap going up. As time goes on, the deal is going to look better and better. Right. Anaheim also has a ton of money to spend, so they can spend it, wisely or how they see fit. He's a good player. Is it a tad rich today? Yeah, but in the not so distant future, I think it's going to age just fine. The Nico Mikkola one is just a classic case of the Florida Panthers are in this window to win right now. So they'll get the AAV that they want for a player and tack on however many years that they see fit in order to get the deal done. And then they'll deal with the fallout when the time comes. Right. But they're in this, is it a three more years of a window? Is it 5 more years of a window for Florida? It's somewhere in that ballpark, and they'll have a guy who they feel like, and we've watched him be a pretty good contributor for them. Big, long, rangy, gets up in the play, has really blossomed as a Florida Panther, different than how he played as a Ranger or a St. Louis Blues. So yeah. They'll tack on the extra years to keep themselves in that window.
Yeah, as a Panther fan, when he's 36 and probably not that good anymore, you're going to look up at the banners that are hanging at the rink and go, yeah, that was probably worth it at the time, right? Flags fly forever, as the saying goes.
Yeah, exactly. You got your parade on the A1A, and you jumped in the ocean, and the Stanley Cup was there, and you were at the elbow room. It's all good times.
Nice.
Good times.
Nice. Okay. When's your first game next week?
I got Thursday Habs in Detroit.
Okay,
so
there you go.
Good, a little Original Six matchup to kick things off.
Nice. Good stuff. All right, we will chat with you before then, I guess on Wednesday, so have a great weekend. Appreciate the time as always, and we'll chat again next week.
Awesome. Thanks, JR. See you, bud.